Welcome to our 2023 Social Justice Event Speaker Roundtable. I'm so excited to have you guys here. We have some amazing speakers with us. I'm really excited for you guys to hear everything that they have to say. This is a great break from your builds. I know everyone on this call is hopping on. You've been working hard for 24 hours now. You're almost halfway through your build. So I hope it's going well. I hope you're navigating your obstacles. And I hope you're also coming into this space ready to remember why we're all here, why we're making the impact that we are. I think that this is a great moment for you to reflect on the work that you're doing. So I just want to thank Bhavna, Joanne, and David for joining us. We're so excited to hear what you guys have to say. And we're so excited that you're here to support 48 and 48.
Super glad to be here. So Aaron, I guess I'll kick it off for the team. My name is David Gasco. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I am the founder and executive creative director of Hierarchy, which is a marketing agency. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it in a second. We started in 2015 when I walked away from a conglomerate business that had an agency arm. And the reason why I did that, I'm going to get into the D and I and J in just a second, is because I was really frustrated with long hallway approach to marketing and calling it in and shoving it over the wall and not being fully representative of the communities that we were supposed to be connecting and building relationships with. So I knew that there needed to be more diverse and inclusive ways to be able to do that. Not to mention, I'm a member of the LGBTQ plus community, so I wanted to see myself in that work. And ever since starting as a designer a long time ago, decently long time ago, it was always something that I worked to make sure language-wise, visuals, what have you, were always incorporated, or at least to the best of my ability at that time, to make sure that we represented all people as much as possible. So my company Hierarchy is a marketing agency that is really focused on championing change within marketing efforts across any of our clients and people that we are going to be working with in the future, right? We do it with some our omni-intelligent approach, which utilizes data and some pretty cool tech to close the gap between brands and consumers. But really what we're here to do is to represent, celebrate the uniqueness of people and the intersections that they are in and how they authentically show up in the world. We want to represent that in marketing and help brands be able to do that. We are a certified LGBTE business, so I love to be in, I love to surround myself with the talent, other brands or service providers that are within that space and really bond together and make a difference. So I encourage all of you as you're doing that, even if you're working within a company, find your allies and find the teams that identify and are adjacent to you to work together. So now to get in a little bit about my personal work. So I've also worked in industries like film, CPG retail, technology, banking, fashion, beauty. I know, probably not today. Anyway, so really have some broad experience across the board. However, how do I activate myself within the community? And I think this is the most important part. Is I sit on a couple boards and councils. So one specifically is the DE&I Council for the Georgia Chamber of Commerce. So we want to make sure that we're out there and we're promoting LGBT businesses as well as our friends in other marginalized groups. I was awarded Diversity Champion for the Atlanta Business Chronicle for 2022. So again, work in community. I'm an ambassador of Goodwill of North Georgia for those that are looking for a second chance and want to rebuild themselves. And then I'm also just here to, again, uplift the LGBTQ business community, as well as those, again, that are underserved and underrepresented. I want to thank each and every one of you for your participation today in this build, your investment of time and talent. And please know that what you're doing is extremely significant. So with that, one of my friends, please take it away.
Great. Thanks, David. Hey, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Bhavna Smith. I am, first of all, a mom. I have a teenage daughter and I have 2 dogs. which are a lot nicer to me than my teenage daughter is, but we'll save that for another event. I spent 25 plus years, gosh, in the marketing and advertising industry. And I've been actually quite fortunate. I've had great colleagues. I've worked on some amazing clients, and brands. And I've even had some exceptional managers that have been very supportive. And I've had a lot of mentors along the way. And just through a personal experience, back in 2018, I realized the support system that myself, and then also, some of my female friends needed when it came to negotiating compensation. And it was from that experience that I wanted to find a way to share my lessons learned, and then also collect the lessons learned, from other women, and share that out. So, others don't have to learn the hard way, which led to forming an organization called Until There Are Nine, whose mission is really to help women achieve pay and promotion equity. And, it was when I started to form that, I learned that reluctance to negotiate is a reason for the pay gap. And that was not okay with me. I said some very choice words when I read that online, and I said, well, we can fix that. And that's what I'm here to do now, is focus on helping to fix that for myself, and certainly for my daughter. And it's 2023. I think we should be there by now. And now I'm going to turn it over to Joanne.
Thank you, Bhavana and David. Yeah, so my name is Joanne Hill. I live and work in Dallas, Texas. I'm originally from Mississippi. I work for one of the largest companies in the world, IBM, and just turned 112 years old. And it is one of the most diverse companies, I think. So, which is why I'm here. But I've also been given a lot of opportunities in working with IBM to volunteer in the community. I'm actually on a team this weekend as well, one of my build teams, and I participated in 48 and 48 since 2019. So, but my current role in IBM is as a principal technology advocate for Call for Code at IBM. And Call for Code is the largest Tech for Good initiative. And the overall goal is to work with problem solvers from all over the world. So it's a global initiative, and assisting them, giving them a platform to work on solutions focused on humanitarian and social issues. And I came to work on the team as a result of participating in an internal challenge that we had at IBM, and it was Call for Code for Racial Justice. And those solutions still exist. I participated in open source. We need more participants, community contributors for that as well. And I can give you the link if you need that. So I basically collaborate within IBM and externally with clients in just getting more participation in those, because we just need participation in for climate change, social justice, sustainability, pretty much everything to help the world make it a better place. Let's see, I'm a vocal stakeholder, in my community. I love David mentioned allies, and I could talk a little bit more about that later, but actually we have an allies and community group within my small town where we all got together, everybody, different cultures, everything, and we just got to learn about each other. So it's great. So hopefully in other communities that's available. And I just volunteer in a number of places, the theater or local police department, everything. So glad to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, that's so fantastic. Thank you, Joanne.
Mm-hmm.
So team, should I go ahead and read the first question and jump in? All right, let's do this. Okay, so question is, how have you shaped your career journey to get where you are today? I guess I'll go ahead and start this one off. So when I first read this question, I was like, I have to really think about this one. So hindsight is 20/20 on this one. However, I think when I was working for a telecom company, it finally clicked. Like Joanne, working for a big firm, I knew that once I settled in, there was work that needed to be done. especially from, again, I'm going to stay to the representation and just equality. And of course, diversity, not just in the work that we were providing and doing for our consumers and representing them, but as well as what do internal teams look like? And standing up for what is right and making a case for it. And I think at that point, from my corporate time and then moving back to agency and then branching out on my own, I've looked back, I've seen where there were, gaps is a hard word, but I think you have to identify that. I'm a process brain as much as I'm creative. So I kind of did that SWOT and I looked and I was like, where's there opportunities? And so when I created especially my team at Hierarchy, everybody is 100% handpicked. I mean, I guess every employer or hiring manager can say that, but I really dug deep. I sat down and I really wanted to know about them, where they came from, how do they show up? What intersections have built them that they've traveled through in their life? What has built them to where they are today, right? And so I knew when I put the team together that we were going to be able to do some amazing things because we represented such an amazing cross section. And I still, as I'm having conversations and going through life and meeting people and having a dream of even a larger team, I'm looking for that inspiration because not only are they a great representation of what's so magical about having good DE&I efforts within your company, it makes me a better person. And I think that's really what's so incredible about that. So again, my hindsight is 2020, but I'm definitely more focused as I'm moving forward. So, Bhavna.
So for myself, like I said, I started in advertising 25 years ago and actually started as a media intern. And I knew I wanted to be in advertising, I think since high school, and prior to high school, I wanted to be a lawyer. So it kind of, because it was for me, it was very much about what's right or wrong and what's fair and justice. So it's just apropos that, I sit here today as the founder of an organization to help make things right. But I did start in advertising and, I did that for 15 years on the agency side. I went on the consulting side. And at some point, I realized that I was no longer interested in being a subject matter expert because I felt like my learning had really plateaued. There were so many, advertising speak, like, how I could help clients spend money and what day part mix they should be in. And it just really got very boring for me. And I wanted to understand the business side of things and I wanted to learn more. And when I did learn more, I wanted to apply that. So, in the last few roles that I had, I was very focused on how are we doing things? How are we structured? How are we, organizing our people, our talent? How are we keeping them engaged and motivated and happy? And, how are we delivering the work rather than doing the work itself? And but I had to sit down and think through that, right? Like, this is what I want to do. It doesn't just like happen. So you do have to spend a lot of time in your career kind of just sitting down to think and write down what is it that I like to do and what is it that I want to be doing and what I don't want to be doing and communicate that to, prospective employers or your managers. So I did that and I was pretty clear in, when I was back on the agency world. But the agency industry, for anyone who's familiar with it, really rewards people who spend all of their time on, pitching new business, winning new business. David's laughing because he knows, and certainly being like 100 or 120% client facing. And again, that wasn't my interest anymore. I was really good at it. I was like the client whisperer, but I didn't want to do that anymore. And I was very clear. So I decided to leave and really focus on building, until they're 9 and doubling down on helping women. And so much of the solutions that I have, kind of within the toolkit to bring to women, but also really in particular to companies goes back to how are you structured? How are you organizing your people? How are you rewarding, evaluating, not just, women, but really all of your employees in a consistent way. And, many of you may be familiar with some of the statistics, but 1 in 4 of leaders are, in the C-suite are women, 1 in 20 are women of color. And when, again, doing research and lots of reading and homework, you see that what employees want, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, directly correlates to better business outcomes. And I think so many times DE&I is just like this thing that sits under HR, and it's a people management function. And my focus is to actually start to separate it and bring it into the COOs and the CFOs function. That when you have diversity in leadership, you actually have better business outcomes. So where I am today is really helping, trying to help businesses, unlock that value and make them understand that, if you want 19% higher revenues, 10, more profitability, better access to talent, greater innovation, all of those things are possible. And, it's not, mutually exclusive from what people, from what your employees want for themselves.
I'm sorry, I got it. That was absolutely fantastic. And I know that Joanne's going to just totally bring it home, but
No,
if,
no, go ahead.
but if people can't see themselves there, like you've got to make the place for them. And then that only makes your business better. Totally agree with you 100%. Drop mic. That was awesome.
Thanks.
Great, thanks. Yeah, and my perspective, of course, is a little different because I'm not, not part of HR, but part of a huge company. And so mine is more from, individual contributor stage in by doing, by, as I mentioned earlier, being able to volunteer and also pulling together colleagues, internally to work on various projects and, leading from within, I guess, the company, but not, like I said, not HR. But specific to the question of, how have you shaped your career journey to get where I am today? And I've been at IBM over 30 years, so I'm still here. I've been here a long time, but that's because, it has offered lots of opportunity to give back to the community, which is something that I love. And it's really interesting, as I mentioned, an old company, but even popular, probably way before its time. I am a product of a historically Black college and university and was recruited out of my school. And I know that a number of companies focus on that now, but back then that was different. And so I feel very fortunate to have been, selected and had the opportunity to intern and work, for IBM. But there are so many, as I mentioned, it's a global company, really big. And as far as different industries within a company, I've been able to, to work in all those different areas. So I think, and that shows diversity and diversity of thought for me as well, because I've always been curious and I enjoy learning all from an early age. And so I've been, afforded the opportunity to continue to do that. On a daily basis, I work with colleagues from all over the world. Even on my individual team, I have, colleagues from Israel and the UK and everywhere. So it's a diverse company from where I sit. And then just the opportunity to get out into the community and IBM really values that. The other thing is, like I said, it's pretty much, I've just been given a great opportunity to, I kind of transition into where I am now because I've just been involved in so many different initiatives, within IBM. And so where I am today, technology advocate for Call for Code, as I mentioned earlier, great opportunity that led me there for having the opportunity to work within, on an internal project for that, and still working it, still hopefully recruiting some new contributors as of today. But I think that's how I can, just being curious. I'd say if anyone's listening as far as guidance, continue to be curious, continue to learn and want to learn, different technologies, just about people in general. You can always learn. If you're the smartest person in the room, then you need to find another room, I think. So great. So we'll switch
Yeah,
to the next question.
Yeah, I love that.
That's awesome, Jen. I think I'd love to unpack that, your tenure there, and really track how it's changed over that amount of time, and even how you inspired that change, right? In the different areas that you've worked. So I'm sure like there's a huge case study there to write, right, Bhavna?
No, absolutely. I mean, 30 years with one firm,
Yes, that's unusual.
how, yeah, that would be interesting to unpack, like how you stayed motivated, engaged, and, frankly, my personal value is like, how do you keep learning, for so long in one company? That's great.
Yeah. We have so many great opportunities, to learn. And so we have this great program with summer interns interns, I believe. Yeah, we have an accelerate program. That's what it is. So they're college students. Some of them work for IBM, but some work outside. And we're doing a little coffee chat for 4 or 5 weeks, and we do 30-minute sessions with the college interns. And that was one of them did ask, like, oh, well, what's the best thing, about working for IBM? And that was what I was saying, is the opportunity to volunteer, and to Bhavana's point, that's what's keeping me engaged in being able to work with a variety of people, both internal and external.
Actually, Joanne, do you want to continue? David, is that all right if Joanne maybe starts? Because I think she's starting to go there with, as a leader, what role do you play within your organization to create a more inclusive workplace?
Okay.
That supports diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, and that was where, so as I mentioned, so I'm not part of HR. So that's where I was saying that pretty much I am. It's by doing pretty much, individual contributions. I do pull together a number of teams just internally to work on volunteer activities. And then, as I mentioned, my job role being call for code, of course, pulling together and encouraging mentors within the program, because we have to have mentors, judges, and I reach across in order to judge the challenge. Because I think not sure if I mentioned, so Call for Code, I mentioned it's the largest Tech for Good initiative, but it's more of a virtual hackathon, and it's annual. We do it, but we have different rounds. So part of the job is also, reaching out among, internally and externally to find judges to review the various submissions of the solutions that focus on humanitarian issues. So that's pretty much it.
David, why don't you go next?
Sounds lovely. Thank you. So, I guess Bhavna would know this, when you found a company, it starts with you, right? You have to start building the culture from day one. Hopefully you have some ideas when you go into it. But I have to be, as a founder, you have to be active in it every day. It doesn't take a break. You need to be a great listener. You need to encourage. You need to have sometimes challenging conversations around how to keep your environment inclusive, how to even work with your clients and help them on their journey, right? It doesn't just start and stop internally. We've educated a lot of clients and made better relationships because of it. I think it's some of the things that we do is, it may be very basic, but I take and spend time with each team member as much as I can individually. Like, we'll go out for dinner, have meet for breakfast in the morning, just do a quick chat. We have a monthly stand-up that we do for the team that literally is nothing about work. It's about what's going on in their lives and, fun things to share and whatever. And, the pandemic, I hate to use that word. I want to get rid of it so much, but it changed us because we were all based here in Atlanta and now we're not. And so we have to work even harder to support our team members across, wherever they are, right? So Texas and different places like that. So, and keep and foster the conversations even between them without me. I don't want to be in everything. I want everybody to learn deeply about each other. We are, some people are like, we work for, our company is like a family. Well, we're small and we are. So we feel everybody else's emotions, and we can read each other so personally. And when I learn things, again, I'm a student of human behavior, right? I love to be out there. I love to be listening and learning and talking. I've learned so much even from my LGBTQ plus community on a daily. So, I take that back to the team and we have conversations about maybe somebody doesn't understand some terminology, or maybe it is faced with this, when we bring interns in. And it's just wonderful to just infuse new things and learn together. But at the core, shutting your mouth and listening and acknowledging and truly being in that conversation is really where change happens. And then the team is encouraged to go out and do what they can within their community. We're going to talk about that in a second. However, that's kind of, as my role, it's my job to start that conversation and see it all the way through.
That's perfect.
So I think until they're 9, just, 1, unless you count the dogs as, employees. And, but, I can certainly talk about this from my advertising marketing perspective, but I would like to talk about it from, until they're 9, and, kind of really the focus of what I've realized and over the culmination of, my career is, I think really what was missing and what I wish I had, and I think what I wish I had fought for more as I grew up in the business. And I think the biggest thing was, we need to minimize bias and subjectivity in the decision-making process. So whether it's for rewards, or whether it's for promotions, or whether it's for hiring and firing, those decisions really have to, be kind of have as little subjectivity and bias as possible. So again, my focus is how can, organizations actually do that? And in my opinion, it's 2 ways. Well, it's more than just an opinion, it's an informed opinion, and really the focus of the work that I want to do with companies. One is organizations. So whether you're working in an organization or, lead an organization, it's, have transparent but very objective criteria for what good looks like at every level. Right? Every employee, from their day one, or whether they've been been there for years, should really have a good understanding of what is expected of me, and it's consistent with what's expected of their peers. Because I mean, like many folks, I've had, great managers. I've also had not so great managers. And, you can't really count on the strength of your manager to communicate to you what good looks like and what everyone should be doing, and kind of like leadership development. So it's really important. And I think that also includes not just technical skills, like, hey, you need to kind of really work a little bit more on your technical knowledge, or your presentation skills, or your Excel skills, or whatever it is. But hey, you need to work on some of these leadership attributes, and, or if you want to call them soft skills, if you want to call them EQ, some of those things are equally important. And I think especially for women, those are the same reasons that they're really getting held back, but no one's telling them. And no one's telling them yeah, people don't really like you. And, men too. Right? They don't really like you, or there's their own bias and subjectivity in, if you're a new mom, there's no way she can handle that, that new job or that higher paying job because she's a new mom. She's going to be too busy. It's don't make that decision for me. So you need that objectivity and very transparent, and share that with everybody. So if David and I are peers, we should, have the same information. And if we're reporting, into Joanne, we should know exactly what her criteria is. So if we know that we want to get elevated, this is what it's going to take. So, and if you don't have that, you should be asking for that. The second is, again, if we're going to get more women into executive and leadership roles, what is the only way to have that is very formal succession planning at the executive level. And I think more and more women need to be given some of those, P&L responsibilities, which I didn't really have. So again, this was my failure in my career that I realize now. And I'm like, oh, right. I didn't really have that. And I may have not liked it, but I should have known for myself. I should have figured it out, or someone should have told me, because I'm going to take accountability for what I didn't know. Is, having that is really important, because you can't get to CEO if you don't have that P&L responsibility. No one will just give you the job and then give you that. So I think it's really those two things that organizations need to do, because it's really takes out the bias and subjectivity. And if we can do that, and I know there's a lot of bias training, unconscious bias training, that those are all great, because people have to be aware of it. But then the organization needs to have a system in place. And I think we're dealing with very antiquated systems right now. It's the same performance evaluation criteria. You get 360 feedback. I mean, I'm never asking people who I know don't like me for my 360 feedback, or
Right.
that may have something critical to say or constructive. I mean, I actually have, by the way, I'm like, let's hear it. Because I want to know. So I think those are some of the things, that very tangible solutions that we need to just kind of, remove the bias.
I totally support you in the bias training, right? Because we've all gone through it. I've gone through it, and even through the LGBT chamber, which I was formerly executive director of, we would supply that to our teams, or to our constituents. However, I think so many times, and you hit it right on the head, is, do you take that and then really look at it and make the adjustments as needed for your business, so that you can really identify where some of those speed bumps are? Because you can take the training, but it's still there, and it's still happening, right? It's still happening. And, that's what's really important. I also wanted to add in one thing that, in just overall, and I'm sure we all do it, is making sure that there's a safe place for conversations amongst the individual. And then, of course, as you go up, sideways, down, what have you, make sure that there's that, and there's that deep level of trust, especially if somebody comes to you with a situation. So.
Yeah, that's definitely needed. The only thing I was going to add to what Bob was saying, I think technology. So by the way, my background is computer science and software engineering and technology, even though I'm not technically working in that area right now, but technology can be used to help, look at the data. So based on, what you were saying, as far as, and to help identify some gaps, and to really take out the don't like this person, don't like that person. Because if you just look at the data, their accomplishments, or their performance, then you're not seeing the person, you're seeing the results of what they're doing. So somehow, I think businesses can use that to put people on a more even scale, especially when it comes, women, men, just different, because I think in the case of women, for sure, you always hear that comment that, women, they look at a job, and women feel they have to check all the boxes, whereas a guy, they'll check one box and they're good. They're like, I love this, I can do this job, whereas women, so something. But then I feel just and I think what I wanted to hit on what David had said earlier, I think we will finish with that one too, was allyship, because that is really where it comes in. So you got the training may be required and everything, and like you said, I mean, some get it and some won't, but you really need to rely on allies, so male allies, and everybody. You need allies from everywhere. Somebody to speak for you when you're not in the room, and really look at things from your perspective. And for me personally, I check a lot of boxes. Woman, being Black, coming from a economically disadvantaged, just everything, right? But I have been helped a lot, and I think from that's really, I think, what has drawn me to wanting to give back just from the very beginning, because I was given, a lot, when I was young and everything, and people have looked out. And so I try to do the same thing and give back. So I'm always always willing to be a mentor. I mean, I'll talk to anyone, if any questions, try to help them out. I'm always here to help. And like I said, that's work in, workplace as well as in the community. So.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
we
is
all have to pay it forward.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. So Joanne's kind of alluding to our next question. I think Seema just put it in the chat, and that is for everybody that's joined the call, is we want to hear from you. But how can you and we, better foster open conversations and understanding? Not just in the workplace, people, but in our communities and homes. Joanne, I think, you started to hit it with allyship, right? Is who's having, if we're not there, who's having the conversation, who's holding up what we're all working towards, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice for those that maybe don't have a full voice, right, yet. So I know I said, earlier that it's conversations that we have in our team to empower them and level up their knowledge. Again, if they're not a part of a community, they may not know. So you need to have those moments that you share and just talk it through, right? And then they become even fiercer ally. And then they can go and have those conversations other places, especially outside of the home, because, again, I mean, I'm from the south side of Chicago. A lot of my family still doesn't quite understand me. So, I kind of laugh and I'm like, okay, let's sit down and let's talk about it. Like, let's not just avoid it. Go into it. Go into the fire if you can, at least until you feel comfortable. And then if not, you go and you get your friend or your ally and you have a deeper conversation. So we definitely want to hear from all of you, but that's just kind of top level my story. I'm sure I'm going to have more to say after these my amazing team members do their part.
So I'll go. I think for me, what everyone can do, and again, certainly not in the workplace, but hey, your friends, your sisters, your wives, your daughters, your nieces, all work or all will work. And I think there's a few things that, we can encourage within our friends and family circle to support women before or as they are in the workforce. And, just make sure that you remind them of a few things. I have 3 very specific things. The first one is let them know that, hey, I've heard women's reluctance to negotiate is a reason for the pay gap. Don't let that be your reason, because if you don't ask, you will not receive. So negotiate that job offer, because companies expect to negotiate. Every company has a range for a job, and they're going to put the offer for the lowest end of the range, leaving room for the middle to the higher end of that range for you. So negotiate and counter offer. And if it's not about money, then, make it about something else. You can negotiate a title, by the way. So second, it's stop telling women, just be happy you got the job. Oh, take the money and run, or no, don't do it. You'll just come across as selfish and greedy. Those are the kinds of fears that women have that prevents them from actually asking for more or negotiating. Those are the things that are holding women back, and no one will ever tell a guy that same thing. So stop telling women that. And I get that, even, if my daughter, for example, like hopefully when she gets a job very soon, goes out, and I might be like, no, just be, like I'll have to check myself. Right. Because I want, like, hey, she got a job that she's loved, like, don't rock the boat. And I think people who are in that circle, that's why it's good to have very different mentors, not just mentors who help you play it safe, but mentors who will challenge you. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is that they should raise their hand and ask for that raise, ask for the promotion, ask for that job that's opened up in a different department or a project, because the other thing is women tend to wait to be noticed and recognized for their good behavior. and someone will recognize me, someone will come to me and, offer me that promotion. It's going to feel so much better when someone comes to me and offers me that. That doesn't always happen because your manager is busy with a million different things, and the best person in charge of your career is you. So it's okay to ask, and you should be doing that. So those are 3 things that I think you can encourage everyone. And the one thing I like to remind folks is, especially if you are, if you're married or you have, your daughter's living at home or your wife, 20% more for her is 20% more for you in your household. So it's the pay gap doesn't just, affect women, it affects families, it affects men, and the kids, and obviously, her long-term kind of retirement and economic certainty. So those are my 3.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, and I just wanted to add, so from the workplace perspective, generally, or at least most companies, there are business resource groups or BRGs, and it's what we call here, and then also ERGs, employee resource groups. But those are great ways to, connect and have conversations and meet those that you just learn more about different people, and with that you can gain mentors or allyship as part of connecting with those various groups, joining community calls. There are so many, and I know, and once again, I guess because of the privilege I have with IBM being a big company, we have a lot of groups. I'm literally, and we do a lot via the Slack channels. I participate in every channel. Neurodiversity, LGBTQ, Black, Asian Pacific, Latin. I think they just changed it to La Familia, but that is just my way of getting connected and learning what I don't know and how I can support, various communities that I don't necessarily fall into, but they're every people that I have to work with and live with, in the community. So I like to come from a point of understanding. So that is one way, definitely within the workplace, I would suggest. And then of course, I think I've said it maybe 3 or 4 times as far the community, definitely volunteer. There are so many, opportunities to volunteer in your community. There's a library. I volunteer at my local community theater. I'm not a performer. I'm behind the scenes. I do tech and everything for that. You just get to meet people from, just across the board by just volunteering. And one of the things that I like to say, and it's empathy, really. We said, definitely practice allyship. David already said, you took my points, David. Listen. I know. I was like, because you get to know so much about others just by listening and then sharing your story. So one thing, so my personal highlight regarding the allies in communities, one of the, and this was about three years ago that my city decided to do that. And it was about 40 of us, in the group. And like I said, all cultures and everything. But what we realized, everyone loves talking about, or talking over and eating over food. So food is become, and we got to, we shared, everybody's different cultures, the food from within their culture. So you got introduced to a lot of different foods that you probably would not have if you didn't, meet those people or those community members. And then what I love from there, they gave us a phrase when you meet someone, just say, tell me your story. And I use that over and over. It sometimes it catches people a little off guard sometimes, but then they go, oh, and I just said, oh, just, tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up? Where did you come? And so it's just tell me your story. And I actually used it on, I mentioned a different coffee chat with one of the students, and she said, oh, I love that. And then she turned it around. She said, tell me your story. She told me where she was from. But that is just a way of finding out, just a little bit more, meeting a person, where they are, because and the last thing I was going to say is empathy. This is where my technical part comes in. I was like, if I could write a patent, I would love to write a patent to enable the ability for people to have empathy and look and understand, from someone else's point of view. So that's on my list of things. If I could do it, I would love to do that. So
I love that you got the word empathy in there, because it really is important, because again, we need to understand where the person is that we're talking to, right? I don't want to bring it down on a not like, I don't want to bring it down, but one place that if you want to take it out to home and community is potentially listen for microaggressions, because that is a great place to start. Now, I don't want you getting beat up for calling somebody out, but I think there's a way that we can go out there and we can say, hey, I want to let you know that is a way that something that made me feel, or I know somebody in this situation, or what have you. So, maybe that's just a small thing that you can do, is just listen and be that educator, right? You're listening, and plus you're helping, and you're potentially saying, you might want to phrase it like this.
I love that.
So that is definitely a tangible way. Both of you have given amazing, firm ways to also get it from your own perspective. So I think we have one question in the chat from Vera. Hey, Vera. As we advocate for equality for women, LGBTQ minorities, how do we remove the stigma of company hiring women, LGBTQ, a minority as a mere quota fulfillment? I'm going to let the experts that work for bigger companies take care of that. I don't have quotas. I hire the person and the talent. So that's kind of how I do it. I'm going to let the experts here take a stab at that one.
I don't know if you can remove the stigma of a company. I think if you are in a company, again, I hate to give this cliched kind of, statement, but if you, be the change that you want to see in the world kind of thing. But I think you can, if you are a hiring manager at a company, you can, talk to your HR business partner, talk to your talent acquisition recruitment team, and ask them, how are we evaluating candidates, and how can we make sure that we are removing bias from, whether it's resumes. I know at my last company, we removed, I think, names and addresses, because I was like, Jersey, no one's ever going to come in from Jersey, to the city. So, I mean, it's just those little things. So you can talk to, and again, it's about what's the objective criteria for hiring. It should be the same objective criteria for promoting. So I think it's really having that. And, if you're a hiring manager, you've got to remove that stigma for others, for your peers and colleagues. But if you are a candidate and you want to understand, and a lot of, I think, 2/3 of, especially Gen Z and millennials, are actually looking at the makeup of any company as they're interviewing, especially, the leadership diversity. So you can certainly, look on, Glassdoor or Fishbowl to understand the makeup of a company. And if there's very few, what type of ERGs do they have? Are there enough to form, an LGBTQ ERG, or an Asian American ERG? So you can really look at it that way. But if you feel like you're going into a company where there's a quota for, being a minority or LGBTQ or women, probably want to just stay away from them.
Right, go where you're appreciated.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure there, so regarding your question, and not to get political, but I know in some, I'm in Texas, but I know also in Florida, I believe there have been some recent legislation that have taken out because I think it was assumed or that hiring was being done because of a quota, as opposed to looking for, a set of candidates from different backgrounds, which, but like I said, I don't want to get political, but how to remove it, I'm not, I definitely can't speak of it. I know, that's more of an HR, and I'm not in HR, but I don't know if they'll say that there's not really a quota. You're looking for talent, but there is the stigma, is where I wanted to just really mention. I think that's where you may be coming from. I know they're doing that, looking at doing that in other areas as well. I know at the university space, and then I think, and I'm sure it'll go to other places as well.
I can say from my years in corporate America, I think company wide, they had a goal, let's call it a goal, not a quota, to, diversify, right? But I think it's up to the hiring manager of your team to also look at your team to say, is there something missing, here potentially? Again, really look at the talent that you're hiring, right? Look at for their skills and things like that. But I think you can, if your team is potentially too much one way or the other way, having the diversity of thought and lived experiences is so important. So I think you have a little bit of work to do, not meeting a certain number, just looking, is your team well-rounded?
Right. Yeah. And I see in the chat, Crystal says Florida here. Yes. And then Jacinta said Georgia too. So yes, unfortunately that is happening. And just from my own personal, of course, as I mentioned, I check a lot of boxes. So, and then, as I mentioned, coming from Mississippi, from a small school into a big company, I have been met with that as well, even just like, oh, you're here, as opposed to perhaps some from other, bigger universities and things like that. So those are people, back to my patent that I would love, I can't change the way that, people think or feel, although I would love to, but I just have to be true. And I would suggest to everybody else, be true to who you are, show your talents. Like I said, continue to learn. That's what I do. So, education is power, I always say, and just continue learning.
And speak up.
Speak up. Yes,
Speak up. Right? That's the most important.
Yep. Advocacy. Yep.
Exactly.
Legislator. Write to your legislator. I most of mine know me very, very well.
Same here. Here.
Yeah. Voting. Vote. Vote for candidates that support, passing legislation that, supports, kind of pay equity. And that's really important. I don't think I really understood how important it was until I started kind of really digging into the topic, years ago.
So team, this has been fantastic. So audience, if you have any last minute questions, I would encourage you to pop them up in the chat. Otherwise, I would say it has been fantastic spending time with both of you.
It was great spending time with you guys.
Yes.
So, all right, build team, go to it. Like, we're so excited to see what comes out of this. I know that there's so many organizations being helped and it's super excited. So Seema, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Yes, great. Well, thank you all for being here. And thank you so much for sharing your experience and your knowledge. I think it was an amazing conversation. I know that our build teams are working really hard to support the nonprofits that they have chosen or have been given to this weekend. And I do know that there'll be a lot of people watching this recording. So if you do have questions and you're watching the recording, please funnel them to us and we'll get them to Bhavna, Joanne, and David for anything that we could possibly help with. And with that, I say thank you so much again for being here and supporting 48 and 48. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of the weekend.